greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated to. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Yes, they have a very special lesson because I have an interview from a very special person. You've seen her on the show, or at least I hope. Better watch it. I'll put the link below here in the video. I have Judge Julie Ketterman. Well, now Judge Julie Ketterman. She's recently been voted on the show, and she's also my new co-host of the new show, Family Case Files. So cleverly named by her. So Julie, you there?
I'm here. Thank you for having me on again, B.
Absolutely. So usually you'd be welcome to TLB, Liberty Television Network, personally by being interviewed by Roger, the owner, and Rebecca, the director, but they've given their responsibilities to me. So I'm very happy and official welcome to the network.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about not just being on your show, but I'm excited about the projects that you and I are working on, and fingers crossed that we can get the knowledge out there about what's going on with CPS and other government agencies, and let's start saving families one at a time.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. The families, children. It's very upsetting to me that the government has taken so much interest in child trafficking. There's no other way you can really put it when we boil down to the base element, making lots and lots of money off moving these children, families forward. So we have done a few episodes of Family Case Files. There are things I want to ask, but I want reform. We're going to talk about that. First, throw out your credentials because I got to know what to put on your marquee, how many letters, and whatnot.
So the only letters are the J and the D. So, I'm a lawyer. I am a judge, a municipal court judge now, but I still mainly practice law, and I represent families. I represent moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles who CPS, the Child Protective Services, or the Department of Family and Protective Services, where they've come in and they're trying to break these families up. I have kind of made it my goal to try to help one family at a time, and that's what I do. I of course have a law degree. I'm as far as credentials, one of the things I always say is I also have 3 kids and 6 grandkids. So when it comes to keeping families together and raising families. I mean, I've done it. I've done it, while still married. I've done it as a single mom. I have one of the things I'm fighting for so much now is also grandparents. So many grandparents are raising grandchildren, including me. So I'm raising 2 of my grandkids. When I do this kind of stuff, as far as credentials, again, it's more life credentials that I have. I have a daughter who suffers from addiction and sex trafficking, actually. So I'm raising her 2 children. I've had both of them since they were born. So I also, when I deal with these families in the situations they have, so many of them are dealing with addiction issues and that sort of thing. I oftentimes can say, not only do I, can I help you legally, but on a personal level, I get it. I get it as a grandparent who's raising, grandchildren. So those are my credentials. I'm working on a couple books. I'm working on some guides for the public to kind of help get them through CPS cases. I have had a radio show as well, Where Justice Lies, and then now the co-hosting with you. So that's kind of what I'm doing. It's none of it's real fancy, but that's not the goal. The goal is I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. Knowledge is power, and I think that the only way we can chip away at the corruption that is CPS, chip away at the corruption of the family court systems, the judges, the providers within the department, the entire gamut is knowledge. Parents have to know that they can say no. Parents have to know what their rights are. When CPS knocks on your door, and they come in with all that power, where they can literally take your children and walk out with them, that's a very, very scary situation. And you want to talk about as a parent feeling hopeless and helpless, that has to be just horrible. I mean, I have not experienced that, but I have certainly had clients who have, and I've been on the phone while CPS is taking their children away. So in my mind, the only way to fix that is to give these parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles the knowledge on how they can fight the system.
Absolutely. And I've actually seen a lot of videos on YouTube, and this seems to be such a phenomenon. I love counter surveillance. When you have someone perpetrating a crime on you, the name of someone important, you always got to have your documentation. Video documentation is awesome. And people recording their encounters with these CPS workers, and on the phone, police, while stuff's going on, and it sometimes deters some of these criminal actions. I'll say criminal actions because kidnapping is criminal. You mentioned before on our show how these people would come and take your kids on a Friday evening because there's no court on the weekend. So they're in a process and victimizing people. So the recording documentation of the CPS workers That's something that should be implemented.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, I tell clients, document. I can't say it enough. Record, videotape, keep a journal every single day of every single call. It's tedious. It might be inconvenient, but I promise you, as sure as I'm sitting here, it will help in the long run. I tell people, don't be shy about recording. You know, if a investigator comes in your home and they want to take pictures, you know how they walk around and they're opening cabinets and taking pictures and opening refrigerators and taking pictures. And I have actually had cases where CPS investigators have switched photographs, so to speak, you know, to show a messy house or, you know. So I tell clients, take a picture of everything that the caseworker took a picture of. Take a picture of the caseworker taking a picture. You know, I mean, and don't be shy about it. I mean, my goodness, if somebody from the government comes in my house, well, first of all, they're not going to get in, but let's say for the sake of this argument that they get in, my goodness, I am going to record everything, and I am not going to be bashful about it. I'm going to have every recorder on and every videotape on, and I'm going to take pictures of them taking pictures, and I'm going to record every question they ask me and every answer, because I cannot tell you how many affidavits from a CPS investigation that I have gone through over all these years. But I can tell you that in all the years I've been doing this, in all the affidavits that I have read, where a CPS caseworker or investigator has you know, outlined the facts of their investigation and why they removed children, I have not come across one, not one. I can't stress that enough. Out of the thousands and thousands of affidavits that I've read, I have not found one where the caseworker did not lie or misrepresent the truth. Not one. So when, you know, and I tell clients, I say, okay, go through this affidavit and mark what was, you know, you didn't say this, you did say this, you know, because I said they're going to take little things, they're going to twist it around, and they're going to, you know, which is why lawyers don't like clients to talk, you know. But and I tell them, you know, it's you're going to read this affidavit, and you're going to think that it didn't happen at all like this, and that's the truth. And so I tell people, my goodness, they're recording, they're taking pictures, they're taking notes. You have an absolute right to do the very same thing. And it is gosh, I can't even think of the word, but it is, I would think, if you're talking about the department coming in to take your children away, and they're taking pictures and they're taking notes and they're asking you questions, there is zero reason why you should not be doing the same. You know, if that caseworker says, don't film me, you can't take a picture, you say, you know, who's going to stop me? You and what army? I mean, we still live in America, we still live in America. And by God, we have constitutional rights, and I'm going to fight for each one of those rights for you and me and every mother and every father and every grandparent until I, you know, fall over dead in a courtroom somewhere.
Absolutely. That's what we got to do. So, reform. This whole system has to be reformed. And so there are ideas that, you know, I would like to talk about. And when you think of body cams, what do we got to do to have body cams on these CPS.
I think it's a wonderful idea. I think that it just as police officers should wear them, it forces these caseworkers to be accountable for their actions. Interestingly enough, there is new case law that now says that, and I can get you the case name. I don't have it at the top of my head, but it now says that CPS caseworkers are an agent of police. And so when they go into a CPS investigation where there may have been a criminal act as well, whether it's sexual abuse, child abuse, whether, injury to a child, all of those types of criminal acts that can have a parallel CPS case, that when those investigators start questioning mom, dad, Uncle Joe, whoever it may be, that they have to read them their Miranda rights, because they are acting as an agent of the police. And so, this is very recent that the Supreme Court has come out and said that, no, you can't go in as a CPS investigator, with the police hanging out outside, and ask a parent all these questions that might incriminate them, and call it, a non-custodial statement just because you're not a police officer. Because so many of these cases, even specifically here in Houston, you'll have like the HPD housed in the same building as CPS, and they share that information. So the Supreme Court has said, enough's enough. If you're gonna question that parent or that grandparent having to do with facts that might have been criminal as well, you have to Mirandize. That caseworker has to read that the Miranda warnings to that parent. So, and I say this because you're talking about the body cams. Absolutely. One of my biggest arguments has always been, even when you talk about a CPS case and the rules of evidence and the discovery and all of that, I've always said, what, if you're confident about your case, if you're a CPS investigator and you have removed children from parents, and you're confident about your case and your reasoning why those children had to be removed based on abuse or neglect, why not hand everything over? Why not hand my entire case file over and say, I have nothing to hide. Here's the facts. Here's the investigation. Here's what I believe what was going on. Here's the facts to support it. And I'm not ashamed of my investigation. I'm not ashamed of my reasoning on removing your children. I think parents have a right to see that entire case file without hiding any of it. If you've got that power to go in and remove a child, I think that you should have that accountability as well. And having body cams, I think, would change the system. So, in other words, I vote yes for body cam.
Okay. It definitely seems like a great idea. I always complain about the police who like to turn off body cams one moment suits them, which should be you're on the clock. You need a body cam.
Well, I agree. Or don't you like the ones where also the audio doesn't work? Seriously?
Well, I think as public servants, if you vote into an office, there needs to be a camera right above your desk. The public should be able to tap into your phone, listen to your conversations, whatever we damn well want.
And your emails ought to be public, and I agree.
Everything done publicly.
Right. Another thing I think the body camps would do. I actually have some. I just recently did a case where the police went with the CPS caseworker to remove a child, and what it showed me was how horrific it is to remove a child from the parents. I think that if more, I think the public watches what CPS is doing through rose-colored glasses. I think that I think that they are very naive, thinking that CPS is not going to remove a child from a home unless it's absolutely necessary. You and I know that that's not the case. Studies have shown that, recent studies have shown that even children who may be experiencing some abuse or neglect are still better off in the homes with their parents than to be removed by strangers and put with strangers into a foster care system that is broken. Of course, I'm not advocating for those parents who abuse or neglect, but what I'm saying is that the studies have shown that, to take a child away from a home because, somebody smokes marijuana or somebody, the parents may have had an argument, that is not, removing that child is not in that child's best interest. And the studies and the science is showing that it's actually more traumatizing. I could get into if the child's below, 3 and the detachment disorders that could come about with it. But it's, the department nationwide is so saturated with cases involving families where there's where the allegations are minor, and I certainly, again, not advocating for any of that, but it's not. It's just saturated with these cases that are clogging up the system, and not only destroying families along the way, but it's also putting the department in a position where the caseworkers are overworked, underpaid, and the children who are victims of abuse and neglect, and I'm talking about the serious cases that we know are out there, they're not, those kids aren't being protected by the department because they're so overwhelmed with these other cases where it's just so insignificant. And getting back to where, coming full circle, I can show you, there's videotapes I can show you. I've got them where these kids are being ripped away from their parents. They're being ripped away from out of their car seats. I've got one where up in Conroe, Texas, the officers and I could imagine you watching it, just shaking your head. The officers actually get their batons and break the car window as the children are screaming, and they're pulling these kids out of broken windows. These children are traumatized by this, and that's what keeps me up at night. That's what keeps me up at night, thinking about these kids. And I mean, can you imagine? And I know I'm just rambling here, but can you imagine just, being, 5, 6, 7 years old and, being ripped out of your parents' car by a stranger? And I mean, the fear, talk to any child who's been, kidnapped, or any parent who's had their child kidnapped. How is this any different? How is, when the caseworker, reaches into the car and takes your child, and I'm talking about from the child's point of view, because it's the fear is subjective. How is that any different than somebody carjacking and taking that car and that child? How is the fear, how is the trauma lessened within that child because it happens to be a CPS caseworker?
Well, the difference is one action versus another is state funding.
And state sanctioned, yes. Well, it's different on that level, but I'm talking about to the child. From the child's point of view, is it different because the CPS caseworker has a Texas badge? No.
We are taught when we grow up, when we teach our kids, this person badge is, trust this person, but then that person with the badge ends up doing more harm, like as you say, than someone who is not working for the state, or the government, county, whatever.
Absolutely.
And it's too much of a money mill. I would agree, because I had it rough growing up, but I can tell you that growing up, being raised by the master sergeants, did me a lot better than if I were to have been taken out of my home, which the situation did arise, and I was told, "Hey, tough luck, kid. Stick it out."
Right. Right. And then it's. I often wonder. Again, these are the things that keep me up at night. Once that child is taken and put in a foster home or a potential adoptive placement, what are they then told? Who talks to these kids? Who tells them, why they're there? Who encourages them to be, patient and strong while mom or dad, get the treatment that they need? Or are they telling them, mom's just gone? Or are they not telling them anything? And this child, it's left up to their imagination to try to figure out, where mom is or where dad is. So it's.
Well, I've actually have more concerned whether or not these kids are getting proper medical care and are having timely meals. I've seen some horrific news stories and read some stories about children dying in CPS custody.
Happens all the time.
Nutrition, having bruises all over their bodies. You don't know who these people are who are taking your children. I mean, it'd be one thing, again, pushing surveillance. If you're going to take my kid, that kid at least better have a remote camera on him.
Absolutely.
Be able to see him or her at any time I would like. That should be a right for any parent who has not officially had their rights terminated.
You're right. It's and I actually hadn't thought of that until just now. And you're absolutely right. If you think about daycares, many of them have where parents can remote in from their computer and see how their kiddo's doing. Right. You've got the nanny cams. How many nanny cams have caught nannies abusing children? And it has, I'm almost embarrassed to say, but it's never crossed my mind until you just said it. If you are a licensed foster home, if you are licensed by the state of Texas to foster these children who are supposed to be there temporarily, why don't they have cameras? why don't they have a system set up, and even if it's not for the parent, to check in, but at least for, whether it's the caseworkers or whoever it may be, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they have that on a state licensed foster home? I think it's a brilliant idea.
I've heard people saying they got their children back from CPS, which haven't taken away again since bruises, and they would say these bruises were on the kid when he or she was returned to me. And those who pursue the system on these individual circumstances, they don't seem to fare well. And blame is thrown back and forth until, okay, we're just going to take a kid's kid.
Well, that's just it. That's you see a lot of that when the parents will have not just returning, if the children are returned, but same visits, for instance. The child will show up for a visit, and a child who used to be laughing all the time and a little chatterbox is now withdrawn and not talking at all, or comes with clear fingerprint marks on them, or the parents aren't able to ask the kids about it. The caseworker will jump in and say, you can't do that. But as a parent, you see this and you know that it's, something's happening to your child, and it puts you in a horrible position of, talking to the caseworker. And then, like you said, then they just, they're like, okay, well, we'll just move the child again. So now you've created a situation by bringing this to the caseworker's attention. Even though you want your child out of that situation, oftentimes they don't send them back home, or they don't send them to a relative, they send them to another stranger. So it's, you may be taking them away for the physical abuse, but they're going to be affected mentally again. So, what do you do as a parent? What do you do?
And, well, I don't know what would it take for these acts to happen? Do we have to go to Senate, Congress, call our representatives to force some of these measurements into the system? What's it going to take? Legally?
I mean, the logical answer is yes to all of the above. I mean, we have to make laws, but it's, how do you make laws? You gotta bring out, you have to show why the laws are needed, and the only way that can happen is to shed light on what these kids are going through, shed light on what these caseworkers are, what they're doing, how they are, misrepresenting the facts, how they are just flat out lying in some cases. And maybe it's time to start listening to some of these studies of how this is damaging our children, instead of listening to the therapists who are contracted and make their money off CPS. But yes, I mean, here's the problem, B, and I said it earlier. Too many of our citizens, they just don't get it. They don't get that this is going on, because it's you can't even wrap your head around it. When I first started doing this, I was floored. I was floored. Nobody wants to believe that this is happening. Nobody wants to believe that this is happening under the watchful eye of our government. And so what's easier? You hide behind your ignorance and pretend it's not happening, or you get out there and you fight for what's right for these families and these kids. The easy thing is turn a blind eye, right? So again, I think it comes back to knowledge. If we get the knowledge out there that this is happening to our families, that this is happening to our kids, and I'm not talking about the kids just on the news who are, in some small town in Texas or in Montana or whatever. I'm talking about the kids in our neighborhood. The kids up the street. The kids in our churches. I mean, our kids. It's not their kids. It's not those kids. It's our kids. And it's happening every single day. And it's, the system is just not set up, I guess, to fight it. You have a select group of advocates for children across the nation. You have a select group of attorneys across the nation who are willing to fight for what's right. But, the government in their infinite wisdom and ways, and the courts, and I mean, they always find a way to shut us down. And, it's not, and that would be a whole different show, but I know it's happened to attorneys that I know of. I know it happens to me. And all of this can't be coincidence. It's, so, it's, yes, we have to get to the legislatures. We have to get to the Senate. We have to get, we've got to get some of these parents to speak up and talk about what's happened. We have to get these kids who age out of the system to talk about what happened to them in the system. And we have to believe them, because it's to the point, like on our show when we talk to Deborah, or you talk to some of these kids who age out of the system, that they've created this lie where now they're saying, either the parents are mentally ill or the children, have ADHD and have all these, diagnosis, and they're drugging the parents and they're drugging the children. And so the instinct is, if a parent complains and says, this is what happened to my family, or if a child says, this is what I experienced, most citizens write it off as it not being necessarily true. So, I mean, the government they've covered their bases. They've crossed their T's, they've dotted their I's, and they've created a system that that allows the abuse to continue.
Well, you mentioned people turning a blind eye to this sort of thing, and I have a saying: "People, the guys which were powerful, so again, the issue of counter surveillance is brought up. We need to be in a counter surveillance mode. We need to be in counter surveillance societies like you have a government that is surveillancing you, policing you,
right?
Us. The only reason why they're doing so much surveillance and trafficking of us is out of simultaneously out of their fear of us, and they're wanting to make money. So that just spells corruption all the way. I don't know. I think we as people, we need to be able to form committees at random to go and do the research that needs to be done, to get information that needs to be collected. I don't know, some sort of inquisition.
I agree. I
This
task force. Yeah.
Yeah, and so obviously it can't be government controlled, and for the people, by the people, dissolve the jobs done, no lingering positions. That's how our federal government is actually supposed to be. But I digress. We really need to, how should become more involved in politics. We need to not just look at stupid YouTube videos of some politicians saying something stupid. We need to be more involved in the process. People have given up all control of the government and we are no longer with people. But I think if we make it entertaining, a little bit of interaction, I don't know. I think we need to have, C-SPAN type of reality show. Get people involved, get people aware, get people a say, and make the public servants act according to our will. But that's the only way I think it's going to happen. That's our fun. That's my fun.
I agree with you. I agree. I agree. But how, it's but when you talk about doing things like this, I mean, it takes an army, and the system is designed when you have those of us who are fighting for this stuff. It's designed to cut you off at the knees, and so instead of an army, we're just kind of, those of us fighting for what needs to happen. We're just kind of peppered, throughout the nation, and it's they've almost made it impossible to get together and.
Oh yeah, they've divided and conquered. I mean, the stuff wouldn't be going on if people would fight for their grandkids or nephews, or somebody's having trouble in the family. Just like what you do. Somebody's having trouble in the family, you're there to fill in and do what you got to do.
Absolutely.
The government has taken that element out of our society, again, breaking down the backbone of our society, which is the family unit, not some totalitarian, Nazi regime.
Right.
Indoctrinate, of course, what they do all the time. So, yeah, I mean, what's it going to take? I know. I don't want things to get violent, although that's not always avoidable. But at some point, we get together as communities, families, as a community. 100 of us stand and block a house. Stop police from entering a house. I think that would send a powerful message, in a case where someone is protecting the child legally, rightfully, and actually think that the child doesn't want them to trade it off. I think we need to do these mass demonstrations. I see these CPS groups and organizations that do these marches, get on CV, see who is going to have police at the doorstep, go rally in front of the house. I don't know. I think it's a start.
I agree.
But yes, these are things that we're talking about on our new TV show, Family Case Files,
Right.
and hopefully we can make a difference and get people to get interested in the politics. We're gonna have the show formatted every once in a while. We're gonna have people join us through Zoom. You can chat, put messages in the chat box, ask us questions, and we'll talk about what you want to talk about and address these issues. It's not always going to be a one-on-one or two-on-one scenario. We got to do as much outreach as humanly possible. And do you have any worries or concerns for the future because of this undertaking that we're going to be attempting?
Do I?
Yes.
Always.
Always. Okay.
Always. It is. It it happens to a lot of attorneys. It's not just me. But once your name gets out there that you're fighting, the system, things happen. Do I think that there will be some repercussions? I would bank on it. I would bank on it. But it's I've been attacked, personally, professionally. They can't hurt me anymore. And as far as I'm concerned, every time I get attacked, and I don't mean physically attacked, I mean, physically or professional. I mean, personally or professionally, it just makes me stronger. But I've also said, if you get in that position where things are happening, feels like, people are trying to shut you down and shut you up. It's kind of like you talked about the public eye. What's the best way? Shine a light on it all. Go public. Let the more people watching you and me and the others who fight this fight, and whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on YouTube, it's the more people watching, the safer I feel.
Absolutely. And I want to talk briefly before we wrap up this episode about your recent predicament. You've been held in contempt in someone's court.
Well, she's trying to. Yes, I had a case out in Hayes County, and it was a termination of parental rights case that the judge, and I'm not going to go into names or anything yet because the case is still ongoing, but you want to talk about a violation of my client's constitutional rights, just shut me down, and like most of my cases, I wasn't going to have it. I was going to zealously represent my client and do what I had to do, and she didn't like it. So she is wanting to hold me in contempt of court. So there will be a hearing next week, and she's asking that the criminal district attorney or assistant district attorney out there is the one prosecuting it, and they literally want to put me in jail, for fighting for my client's rights. And I think it's because they know I have appealed the case, and I don't know if they're thinking, I don't know what they're thinking, put her in jail, maybe she'll shut up. I who knows? Put me in jail. I can't do the appeal. Pick a reason, but it's insane to me that and it scares me. It scares me in the sense of not in the way you think, not in, oh my goodness, Julie may go to jail. It scares me for the lawyers, the baby lawyers, for the lawyers just coming into this profession, for those that are working CPS cases, or any kind of legal case. How are we going to teach the baby lawyers and other lawyers? How are we going to tell them it's okay to fight for your client? How are we going to tell them that it's okay to, argue for constitutional rights when judges are throwing lawyers in jail for doing it? It's just going to scare. It's a scare tactic. Not only are they wanting to shut me up, but they want to kind of put it out there for baby lawyers and anybody else who's thinking, that you might, want to fight for some of these families, that this is what might happen to you. So, and that's scary to me. It's very frightening that, for baby lawyers, for these kids coming into the profession now, with the energy and the wherewithal to think, okay, I want to fight for my clients. I want to fight for their constitutional rights. So it's
well, and you're being hit with the maximum. Usually it's like a $500 fine.
It's usually a $500 fine and up to 6 months in jail. The way the law reads here in Texas is, as an attorney, she can actually, if she finds 3 contemptible actions, I can be fined and put in jail up to 6 months for each. So that's a total of 18 months, and they can do it consecutively and day for day. So,
well, I can say that I haven't heard any lawyers ready to lay down their own freedom for clients. So, you are the real deal, and I'm glad to have you on my team and here at the Liberty Beacon TV network, even if it's only a short time.
well, hopefully I'll be back next Thursday, and I won't be in jail. I did, I which is another thing that's scary to me for the baby lawyer. I mean, I had to hire a lawyer, but hopefully it'll be over next week, and I can and will gladly give you the names of those involved, because again, it's these are citizens need to know. They need to know that these are the people who are sitting behind the benches. That these are the prosecutors. These are they need to know, and the citizens of Hayes County, they need to stand up and say this isn't okay.
Absolutely. Well, that said, that wraps up this episode of the Red Pill Hardcore TV Show. I want to thank you for coming on once again.
Always a pleasure, V.